My name is Harper Collins. I'm 25 years old. 8 months ago, my parents stood in front of nearly 100 people and called my veterinary degree a waste of money. 3 months later, a $10 billion agricultural technology company offered me a deal worth millions. And suddenly, the same parents who spent years criticizing me couldn't stop telling people they had always believed in me. The problem was, I had proof they were lying. Proof hidden inside an old box in their attic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The story really started when I was 10 years old. I brought home an injured puppy I found near a ditch after a storm. While I was crying and begging for help, my mother barely looked up from her paperwork. "Take it back outside," she said. "It's not our responsibility." But I couldn't do that, so I spent the night cleaning its wounds in the garage. The next morning, a local veterinarian treated the puppy for free. Watching him work changed my life. That was the day I decided I wanted to become a veterinarian. My parents hated the idea immediately. My father laughed. My mother called it unrealistic. And for the next 15 years, their opinion never changed. Every achievement was dismissed. Every science award became not a big deal. Every conversation about veterinary school ended the same way. Find something practical. Meanwhile, my younger brother Mason could do no wrong. Bad grades? Not his fault. Failed business idea? Great learning experience. Dropped out of college? He was just finding himself. The rules were different for him. They always were. At 18, I earned admission into one of the best veterinary programs in the state. Instead of celebrating, my parents focused on one thing: the cost. My father called it financial suicide. My mother called it a waste of 8 years. But I went anyway, because deep down, I knew something. If I stayed home to make them happy, I'd spend the rest of my life regretting it. Veterinary school was harder than anything I imagined. Long nights, massive student loans, constant stress. But for the first time in my life, I was building something for myself. While studying, I became obsessed with a problem farmers faced every year. Animals often became seriously ill before anyone noticed the warning signs. The losses were devastating. So I started researching ways to detect illness earlier. At first, it was just a side project, something I worked on between classes. What I didn't know was that project would eventually change my life. Because years later, that research would attract the attention of one of the biggest agricultural technology companies in North America. And when that happened, my family's version of my story started falling apart. Veterinary school pushed me harder than anything I'd ever experienced. Most students had families cheering them on. I had monthly phone calls reminding me how much debt I was collecting. Every time I called home, my mother asked the same question. Was it really worth it? Not how are your classes, not are you doing okay, just whether I was ready to quit. So eventually, I stopped sharing details. I focused on surviving. During the day, I attended classes and clinical rotations. At night, I worked part-time jobs. I cleaned kennels, assisted surgeries, helped care for recovering animals. Some weeks I slept less than 5 hours a night. But I kept going, because every time I thought about giving up, I remembered something. If I quit, my parents would be right. And I refused to give them that victory. During my final year, the research project I had started years earlier began showing real results. Using wearable livestock sensors and predictive software, I could identify health problems before farmers noticed visible symptoms. At first, only a few local farms agreed to test it, then more joined. The results were impressive. Animal losses dropped. Treatment costs decreased. Farmers started talking. Word spread faster than I expected. For the first time, people in the agricultural industry were paying attention to my work. My parents weren't. They barely knew the project existed, and honestly, I preferred it that way. I graduated at 24. My parents didn't attend. According to my mother, the drive was too long. I wasn't surprised. Disappointed, yes. Surprised, no. I accepted my degree, took a few photos alone, and went back to work. A year later, everything changed. I received an unexpected phone call from a company called Agranova Technologies. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I learned who they were. $10 billion agricultural technology company. Operations across North America. Hundreds of employees. And somehow, they wanted to discuss my research. Over the next several weeks, I met with engineers, executives, and investors. They had studied my data, reviewed my results, tested my models, and they believed my technology could transform livestock health monitoring. The final meeting took place in Chicago. I walked into that room expecting a partnership discussion. Instead, they offered something much bigger. They wanted to acquire the technology, and they wanted me leading the project. The offer was worth more money than I had ever imagined. When I signed the agreement, I sat alone in a hotel room staring at the contract for nearly an hour. Not because of the money, because after years of being told my degree was worthless, industry experts had just placed a massive value on the work built from that degree. I called the only mentor who had truly supported me, Dr. Grant. When I told him the news, he laughed. Then he said something I never forgot. "Success doesn't change people, Harper. It reveals them." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. I understood 3 days later, because the moment the acquisition became public, my phone exploded. My mother called, my father called, Mason called. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly remembered I existed, and within a week, my parents announced a huge community dinner to celebrate my success. According to them, it was a chance for the town to honor my achievements. But after one conversation with my mother, I realized it wasn't about celebrating me. It was about taking credit for me. And what I discovered the day before that dinner would prove just how far they had gone. The community dinner was scheduled for Saturday evening. Nearly 100 people were expected. Church members, local business owners, neighbors, family friends, basically everyone my parents wanted to impress. The moment I arrived in town, I knew something felt off. My mother greeted me with a hug she hadn't given me in years. My father suddenly wanted to hear about my work. Even Mason was acting friendly. It all felt rehearsed, like everyone had been handed the same script. That suspicion became certainty the next morning. I stopped at a local diner for breakfast. While waiting for coffee, one of my mother's friends approached me. "Harper, we're all excited about your announcement tonight." I frowned. "My announcement?" She smiled. "The investment. Your mother says you're giving back to the community and helping Mason expand his business." My stomach dropped. I never said any of that. Not once. After she walked away, I sat there staring at my coffee. My parents weren't celebrating my success. They were spending it, without asking me. An hour later, I drove to my parents' house. They weren't home. Everyone was busy preparing for the event. I walked through the garage and noticed something I hadn't thought about in years: the attic storage area. My mother kept old family records there: school documents, tax paperwork, letters, boxes filled with forgotten history. For some reason, I felt pulled toward it. Maybe instinct, maybe curiosity, maybe something deeper. I climbed into the attic and started looking through old boxes. Most contained exactly what I expected: report cards, childhood drawings, old photographs. Then I found a box labeled Harper, School. At the bottom were 3 university envelopes, already opened. My heart started beating faster. The first letter was dated during my senior year of high school. I unfolded it carefully, then read the first paragraph, and froze. It was a full veterinary fellowship, not partial, full. Tuition, housing, research funding, everything. worth nearly $160,000. I had never seen it before, never heard about it, never knew it existed. I opened the second letter, a follow-up notice asking why I hadn't responded. Then I opened the third. Attached was a handwritten note, my mother's handwriting. There was no doubt. The note said, "Harper will not be accepting this opportunity. Family obligations require her to remain close to home." For several seconds, I couldn't move. She answered for me. She rejected it for me, and she never told me. Suddenly, everything made sense. The debt, the student loans, the opportunities I thought I had missed, the doors that mysteriously closed. I took photographs of every document, every envelope, every note. Then I put everything back exactly where I found it. As I climbed down from the attic, I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger is emotional. This felt different. This felt like clarity. For years, my parents had claimed they were protecting me. The truth was much simpler. They were trying to keep me close, even if it meant limiting my future. That evening, I arrived at the community dinner carrying those photographs in my phone. The ballroom was packed. A giant banner hung behind the stage. "Congratulations, Harper Collins." My mother was smiling, greeting guests, accepting compliments, acting like the proud parent of a self-made success story. She had no idea what I had discovered, and she definitely had no idea what was about to happen when she stepped onto that stage. The dinner started just after 7. The ballroom was full. Nearly every seat was occupied. People were laughing, eating, and talking about the news they had seen online. To them, this was a celebration. To my mother, it was a victory lap. She stood near the stage greeting guests like she was hosting an awards show. Every few minutes I heard the same phrases. "We always believed in Harper. We supported her from day one. We knew she'd do something special." Each sentence made the truth in my phone feel heavier. Finally, the program began. My mother walked to the podium first. The room applauded. She smiled and adjusted the microphone. Then she started telling my story, or at least her version of it. According to her, she had encouraged me to become a veterinarian. According to her, she had sacrificed for my education. According to her, my success was the result of years of family support. The audience nodded. Some even looked emotional. I sat quietly and listened, because I needed everyone in that room to hear the full lie before they heard the truth. After several minutes, my mother extended her arm toward me. "Please welcome my daughter, Dr. Harper Collins." The room erupted in applause. I walked to the stage, accepted the microphone, and waited. The applause slowly faded. Then I smiled. "Thank you all for coming tonight." The room became quiet. "I'd like to start by thanking my parents for organizing this event." My mother smiled proudly for about 3 seconds. Then I continued. "However, there are a few things that were said tonight that aren't true." The room instantly became still. My mother's smile disappeared. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I took out my phone. "My mother said she always supported my dream of becoming a veterinarian." I paused. "That's not what happened." Murmurs spread through the crowd. I connected my phone to the projector. The first image appeared on the large screen behind me, the fellowship letter. People leaned forward in their seats. Then I displayed the second image, the follow-up notice. The room became quieter. Then I showed the handwritten note, large enough for everyone to read. My mother's handwriting, her signature, her decision. The silence was immediate, heavy, uncomfortable, absolute. I read the note aloud. "Harper will not be accepting this opportunity. Family obligations require her to remain close to home." A woman near the front covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I looked at the audience. This fellowship would have paid for nearly all of my education. Then I looked directly at my mother. I never rejected it. The room turned toward her. Every eye, every phone camera, every conversation stopped. My mother stood quickly. "Hapa, I was trying to protect you." But even she didn't sound convinced. I shook my head. "No, Mom. You were trying to control me." For the first time all evening, she had no response, no explanation, no story. Because the documents were sitting on the screen behind me, and documents don't care about excuses. Then something happened that shocked everyone, including me. My father slowly stood up. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, and before my mother could say another word, he admitted he had known about the letters all along. The room gasped, because suddenly the secret wasn't just what my mother had done, the secret was how long my father had stayed silent while it happened. The entire ballroom stared at my father. For most of my life, he had been the quiet one, the man who avoided arguments, the man who looked away whenever my mother took control. Now, for the first time, he couldn't. "I knew about the fellowship," he said. The room erupted with whispers. My mother turned toward him in disbelief. "Richard, stop!" But he didn't. He looked directly at me. "I should have told you, Harper." His voice cracked. "I found the letters years ago." The silence that followed felt endless. For a moment, nobody moved. Then my father lowered his head. "I told myself your mother was protecting the family." He swallowed hard. "But the truth is, I was afraid." Afraid. That single word explained 15 years of silence. He was afraid of conflict, afraid of upsetting my mother, afraid of choosing a side. And because of that fear, he let someone else make decisions about my future. My mother sat down heavily in her chair. For the first time all night, she looked small, not powerful, not confident, just exposed. I looked around the room. Nearly 100 people, neighbors, friends, teachers, farmers, people who had heard one version of my story for years. Now they were hearing the truth. And I realized something. I didn't need revenge anymore. The truth was enough. So I took a deep breath and clicked to the next slide. The audience looked back toward the screen. A new title appeared: The HarperCollins Future Veterinarian Fund. Confused murmurs spread through the room. Then I smiled. "Tonight, I have an announcement." The room became quiet again. "I've created a scholarship fund for students who want to study veterinary medicine and agricultural research." A few people gasped. I continued. "The fund starts with $1 million. Complete silence. Then applause exploded across the ballroom. People stood, farmers, teachers, business owners, students, almost everyone. This wasn't the polite applause my mother had received earlier. This was real. I looked around the room and saw tears in the eyes of people I barely knew, because everyone understood what it meant. No student from our town would have to lose an opportunity the way I did. No parent would get to decide their future for them. The applause continued for nearly a minute. When it finally stopped, I stepped away from the podium. The event was over, at least for me. As I walked toward the exit, my father stopped me. His eyes were red. "You deserved better." I nodded. "Yeah, I did." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he handed me a folded piece of paper, the same budget sheet he gave me before veterinary school. At the bottom was the question he had written years ago. "Still think this is worth it?" I smiled, folded the paper, and slipped it into my jacket. I think we both know the answer now. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter, not because I had won, because I was finally free. 3 months later, the acquisition officially closed. The technology expanded nationwide. The scholarship fund received hundreds of applications, and for the first time in my life, I stopped caring whether my parents approved of my choices, because I had learned something important. The people who call your dream a waste don't get to decide its value. Only you do. And sometimes, the best way to prove someone wrong isn't arguing with them. It's succeeding without their permission. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I had moved into my new role at Agrinova. The technology we built was now being used on farms across the country. Every week I received reports showing fewer livestock losses and healthier herds. The system was working exactly the way I had imagined years earlier while sitting alone in veterinary school. But the thing I was proudest of wasn't the company. It was the scholarship fund. By spring, applications had arrived from all over the state. Students from farming towns, students from low-income families, students who thought veterinary school was impossible. Reading their stories reminded me of my younger self. One application stood out immediately. A 19-year-old girl named Emma Reed. Her father owned a small dairy farm. Money was tight. No one in her family had ever attended college, yet she wanted to become a veterinarian. When she received the first scholarship, she cried. Then she told me something I'll never forget. My dad said veterinary school was unrealistic. I smiled sadly. I've heard that before. She laughed. Then she looked at me and said, "Your story is the reason I didn't quit." That hit harder than any business deal ever could, because suddenly I understood the real value of success. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the recognition. It was giving someone else permission to believe in themselves. A few weeks later, I received a letter from my mother. Not a text, not a phone call, a handwritten letter. The first one she had ever sent me. I opened it slowly. The words weren't perfect. There were no dramatic apologies, no excuses either, just honesty, for the first time. Near the end, one sentence stopped me cold. "I spent so many years trying to keep you close that I never realized I was pushing you away." I read it twice, then folded it carefully. It didn't erase the past. Nothing could. But it was the closest thing to accountability I had ever received. A month later, my father called, like he did every couple of weeks now. We talked about work, the weather, the farm, normal things. Before hanging up, he said something unexpected. "Your mother is proud of you." I smiled. She should tell me herself. A few seconds passed, then he laughed. Fair point. For the first time in years, the conversation felt easy, not perfect, just honest. And honestly, that was enough. Looking back now, I don't think this story was ever really about my parents, or the fellowship, or the company. It was about a choice. The choice to keep going when people doubted me. The choice to believe in myself when nobody else did. The choice to build a future instead of accepting the one someone else planned for me. If my parents had gotten their way, I would have stayed home, played it safe, lived the life they chose. Instead, I chased the dream they called a waste. And that dream changed everything. Today, whenever I visit the scholarship office, I see new applications waiting on the desk. New students, new dreams, new futures. And every time I see them, I remember something important. The people who doubt you aren't writing your story. You are. My parents spent years trying to decide what my future should look like. In the end, they were wrong. The $10 billion company proved it. The scholarship fund proved it. But most importantly, I proved it. And that's how my story ends.